Hi, Steph. Thank you for your questions. It's not always easy to carve time, is it, for the things that we want to do? So well done for that. It doesn't matter that you're only starting now. So you've got two questions. First of all, you're asking about some ideas about how you can allow yourself to experience your emotions, because you're saying when you feel angry, it seems like unless you kind of shout, which you don't want to be doing, those feelings don't go away. So this is really common. This is biology basically that you're working against. So what that really means is that if we're feeling annoyed about something, then, and we don't pay any attention to that, then we're going to be reactive, right? We can't connect to what's going on for us. We can't support ourselves. We can't pause. We can't get into that place of soothe. So what we need to do is kind of the opposite to that, which is tune into ourselves, recognize what we're feeling, validate our emotions. That's really, really important. It can be really hard for anybody who wasn't supported or encouraged, or who learned to do that growing up. So many of us very much learned to tune out our emotions. We weren't allowed to express our emotions, and so we learned to kind of abandon ourselves in those moments, to turn away from our emotional experience. So for a lot of people, it is a practice to reconnect with how we're feeling, to reconnect with our emotional experience. And when we do that, when we tune into our emotions, when we allow our emotional experience, what we notice is that they fade. And this is called habituation. It happens every time with all emotions. If we allow our emotions, they will come and they will go. They only don't go when we do something to stop it. And that could be not paying attention to them. It could be telling ourselves that we are silly or weak for feeling that way. It could be getting caught up in our heads. Very often, if we keep thinking about the situation, it's like we're re-experiencing that emotion and again and again and again. This is part of, I talk a lot about it in the work I do. We're always managing our tricky brain, our thinking brain, versus our biology, our emotional experience. So what I recommend people do is to gently, outside of situations, really start to change their experience they have with their emotions. So it'll be tuning in, paying attention, A, to how you feel, and B, to how you're experiencing that in your body. And for some people that is completely new, but with practice, and I'm talking kind of practice over years, this develops. With practice, we really are able to tune into how we're feeling a lot more. I think what's really key is that we're tuning into what we're feeling and how we're feeling it in our body, not what we're thinking. Okay, so this is the thing that keeps people stuck, is they keep chewing over the situation about how they've been wronged, how their children shouldn't have acted in that way, they should be better by now, what's wrong with them, what's wrong with me, how dare they, and getting caught up in those thoughts stops us from feeling the emotion. So it's really about how do we drop down into the body, how do we re-establish that connection with our body, rather than getting caught up in our thoughts. And that's a practice. If you find that actually you have got too much physical tension, then perhaps something else will help too. So you've got to remember that when we are feeling very angry, the reason that we shout is because it's a really, really, really quick release of tension. Like we're so angry and we shout, and it like dissipates that energy. And that's why it's so tempting in the moment to shout, because it's very hard to fight our biology. That's not really where we need to focus. So it might be, though, that you need to find a different physical outlet. So you've got all of that tension, you don't want to shout, so you need a different physical outlet for that tension. Depending on where you are, that's going to be different. If you can, just having a stretch, moving your shoulders, having a stretch, pushing against a wall is really good. Just pushing your arms against a wall. Having a dance, if you're with your kids, it's amazing, because you can teach them how to regulate as well by, I feel really discombobulated, I'm feeling really angry, I'm going to get it out through my body. So dancing, jumping, exercising, just recognizing that the anger is literally, the energy of that anger is contained in your body, and you can shout it out or you can move it out. So thinking about ways that you can move it out. Singing also can be a really nice release. If you're in the car feeling that out, just sing at the top of your voice. Screaming, not shouting at your children. That one's probably better to do when you're not around other people, but when you're by yourself, like screaming is a really good release in the same way that singing is. Or even writing. This is all depending on where you are. Writing out your feelings is another way that you can get them out. So I hope that's given you some ideas of ways that you can express that anger in other ways other than shouting. The other thing that you asked about was what are realistic expectations you can expect of your child's behaviour. And this comes up all the time in the emotional regulation program, like, is this normal? Is this normal? Is this normal? And it is not the question you need to be asking. So people ask it, it's completely normal to be asking it. But actually, it doesn't really matter whether your children aren't doing the things that you expect them to do. Really, the question is, what do you want them to be able to do? And how can you support them to get there? Because whether or not other children can, say it's putting their dishes in the sink after dinner, say that is that, and you're saying, but should I be expecting that my children can do that? It doesn't really matter whether other children of their age can do that or not, because at this point in time, they can't and they're not, right? So it's about accepting that, understanding that at this point in time, that's just not something in their remit they can do. So the questions you might want to be asking yourself are, what do I want them to be doing? I want them to be putting their dishes into the sink when they finish dinner. And how can I encourage that behaviour? How can I help them to learn to do that? And that is going to help you to find acceptance with where your kids are at, whilst focusing instead your attention on how can you help them to develop in the areas that you want them to develop. Hope that's helped.